Welcome to our session at Microsoft Ignite 2025. We're glad to have you here today. Today we're going to be covering Microsoft Entra ID, replacing group policy preferences and delivering enterprise features in those types of environments in any way that you deliver Windows with our solution, ProfileUnity from Liquidware. I'm Jason E. Smith. I head up Alliances and Product Marketing here at Liquidware. I'm fortunate to have with us today Jack Smith. He's subject matter expert of ProfileUnity and FlexApp. To level set, we're going to go over what Liquidware does and our full breadth of solutions for digital workspace management before we go into today's subject, ProfileUnity, and how it can augment Entra ID environments. ProfileUnity indeed does provide full user and application management. You'll see that in today's demonstration. It goes far beyond a profile tool. It is a full user management solution to really embrace all the user profile settings as well as the policy settings, access to the user's data, and the way that the machine is configured so it can manage the user from point to point, no matter how you deliver Windows, virtual, cloud, or physical. It's complemented with our FlexApp solution, which can separate out applications as dynamically attached applications that are not installed on the endpoint, but also follow the user wherever they go. Our DEX solutions are recognized by Gartner in their new Gartner Magic Quadrant for DEX, both Stratosphere and Command Control. Stratosphere provides deep monitoring and optimization of an environment, while Command Control is real-time DEX, providing that ability to have remediation for help desk teams. All these solutions work across virtual, cloud, and physical. And when you manage these things from a separate level from your platform, the way that you deliver Windows, you have a rock-solid way for delivering Windows, migrating users to a new platform, or changing anything up in between at any given time, and providing that seamless, non-stop desktop. Today's subject, how we add value to Entra ID environments, is what we're going to cover on the next couple of slides, the challenge. There's been a big shift over the years from Active Directory to now ADD, now called Entra ID. This identity is moving to the cloud. A lot of this happened gradually, but yet the real catalyst was in 2019 when a lot of the workers in the world started working from home. And now we have a lot of hybrid work taking place. Sometimes they're in the office, sometimes they're not, and sometimes they're traveling. So the advent of Entra ID was meant to be able to manage these desktops from anywhere. The new technology from Microsoft can work with Active Directory or be a hybrid solution to manage both with both AD and Entra ID. The growth was phenomenal in the first couple of years, going from 250 million users under management with Entra ID to about 425 million by early 2021. And then if you look at this graph out to the right, you see that it's just continued to skyrocket with over 800 million users currently under management with Entra ID. Today, it serves 88% of Fortune 500 and brokers tens of billions of authentications per day, according to Microsoft. Traditional on-prem AD footprints are shrinking as organizations move to this zero-trust cloud-first strategy. Most enterprises now operate in a hybrid mode. We recently did a poll to the community, and we found out that 80% of our customers and prospects indeed already have a hybrid approach to manage their users between AD and Entra ID. So let's take a look at how Windows enterprises have been managed over the years. If you look at the foundational chart at the bottom, the graph that starts in about the year 2000, GPOs were the default way to manage Windows endpoints and policies. In about 2008, GPPs were added through an acquisition that Microsoft did of a company called the Desktop Standard. Even at this time, you'll see shaded in green, ProfileUnity came on the scene and has remained a way to manage hybrid environments no matter how you deliver them all the way through present day. Meanwhile, Microsoft was at work with newer technologies, according to them, with ADMX templates to help manage those environments in around the early 2010s. Intune came on the scene just prior to 2020, and indeed became a good way to use for administrators to manage those environments with Intune. Yet it was limited and could not go in depth the same way that GPPs could do. If you look at where we are today with Entra ID, users admins have access to all these things, and lately they've been using Intune to make up the difference, because Entra ID does not have the same access to group policy preferences as you did in the past. So administrators are left struggling, looking for a way to tie together their hybrid environments. Meanwhile, ProfileUnity has been ever present and supported all of these scenarios for doing similar things to all these and more, managing the profile, the policy, the settings, access to data, and doing all these things on a context-aware basis. The table at the top reflects the change throughout the years and the limitations of each. And as you can see, when you get down to ProfileUnity on the last row across, there are no limitations in the modern Entra ID era. Jack, would you like to add anything to this since you lived a lot of it?
Sure. So starting from obviously the group policy all the way down, some of the things that I have found with customers in the industry is, how do I convert from my Active Directory Classic to my Entra? And a lot of it is going to be, I have to make new PowerShell scripts to do these things. I need to import my ADMXs, but I need to know which ones were assigned to which policy. There's a lot of manual migration processes that need to come into place to pull these items over and put them into Intune. With ProfileUnity, we have the ability to pull in these ADMXs or scripts that help identify the ADMXs and put them into ProfileUnity to automate that whole migration process for you, so you don't have to do it all manually.
The group policy preferences haven't totally gone away, but if you're relying on Entra ID for your work-from-home users, you don't have access to those, right?
That's correct. Yeah, Entra does not do any registry injection, shortcut creations, printer mapping, which you probably would not be using unless you were hybrid. Anything that is a group policy preference basically is non-existent. Only ADMX, ADML type settings are able to be imported. Otherwise, you are writing up scripts and commands to do that action.
So without ProfileUnity, you're left with what effectively Intune can manage on those endpoints. Can you speak to any of the limitations of that? And can you also make it up through scripting or other means?
Sure. I mean, you can put in scripting. If you're, good with PowerShell scripting, the scripts can be put into the Intune environments. The other kind of caveat, or I would say the Intune tax, if you will, is the speed of policy being driven to your workstation. When you do apply an Intune policy, that policy may get there immediately or may get there within a day or so. The difference being with ProfileUnity, when I log in, my policy applies. I get it immediately. So I don't have to, there's no waiting for the systems to sync up. Log in, I get my policy. Log off, I save my settings. Log in, I get my policy.
That's great. And you're dealing with these days compliance issues, and you need to document every way that the entire enterprise for most modern organizations are managed to their endpoints. And scripting does not leave a good process for really being able to document that, does it?
That could be very difficult to do. Yeah. And understanding scripts, if you have a person who wrote said script, has left the company, understanding what that script meant to do or how to put it together can oftentimes be difficult.
All right, let's make a note to show that in the today's demo in ProfileUnity, our summary reports can make up the difference in that area and then overcome all these limitations that you see here. As you see in that final block, as I called your attention to before, limitations in the Entra ID era are not there if you're using ProfileUnity. So today we're going to cover two sides of ProfileUnity. Indeed, a comprehensive user management side of things, that is overall replacing things like group policy preferences, augmenting Intune, the limitations that it has there, replacing a bunch of legacy tools and scripts that you may be using and showing how orderly that is. And then also showing how we can effectively help you manage profiles. Now, you may be thinking these are physical machines a lot of times with Entra ID, and that you don't need to manage those profiles. Well, you indeed do. You need business continuity and disaster recovery, and we can come into play there, giving you a backup to that profile that won't really impact login time significantly at any given notice, so a user can move from one machine to the next. Maybe their physical machine failed, and once they get back onto the network, that profile will come back in seamlessly, and they'll be off and running without missing any user productivity. Same can be true, but it's not really a subject today. For this webinar, applications can come back with FlexApp, and the applications are portable and can come back in that same business continuity way. So what is comprehensive user management? The user management space, otherwise also known as user environment management for a long period of time here, it manages user personas and manages app settings and apps themselves these days and configuration seamlessly. They're context aware. How do you want that EC to react given where that user has logged on? Are they in the office? Are they at their home office? Are they on the road? Do they need the same access and provisions to the policies that you've given them, given a specific area that they've logged into? And also knowing that comprehensive user management can replace those legacy tool approaches and those mismatch of scripts and poorly documented ways of doing things going forward. It can really oversee ongoing desktop policies with ease from one central management console, including provisioning users from day one, managing registry settings and tightening those down from a security perspective, managing printers while they're in the office, giving you access to map drives again if they're on the network and in the office, but you may not need that at home. And you can lock down certain things within the environment from an HK local machine level within the registry, giving you a highly secure desktop experience for a non-admin user. The business benefit of doing this is going to be able to reduce your management cost of PCs by at least 25%, saving you up to $200 per user annually while ensuring compliance. Now's a good time to mention, on the liquidware side, if you'd like to see how much money that we can save you, we have a web value calculator that you can easily take a look at, fill out a few fields, and see how much we can save you. The other side that I said we'd be speaking about is streamlining profile management. You may have heard of FSLogix that works in AD environments. You may have heard of roaming profiles or other profile tools that can help back up a profile, restore a profile. ProfileUnity takes the place of all of these, can indeed actually work with FSLogix if you choose to keep it. It reduces login times going forward. It can restore that profile when compared to other solutions. It can help the user move seamlessly from one operating experience to the other, like from Windows 10 to 11, or differing versions of Windows Server or multi-session Windows. It can leverage advanced profile disk handling for Office 365, giving you provisions for virtual disks that can be steered off to that, and otherwise large profile environments. We can also solve profile bloat. We can make the entire profile portable after all those caches that the user does not need to have a robust experience. We give you a smart profile to ensure an efficient workspace operation. You can get login times overall that include policy management that's going to be applied and provisioning of settings and a robust profile that can go across operating system versions of up to 80% overall faster, reducing your support tickets, increasing user productivity, and lowering any issues that have been contributed to profiles or these settings in the past. This is a look at our user interface, and you'll see a more in-depth demonstration by Jack shortly. Just wanted to touch on certain things in here. You'll see that there's many things in here that help manage the policy creation, as well as there's other things in here that help manage access to applications themselves. So it's not just user management, but also application management. Our own FlexApp modules show up in here to give you those dynamically attached applications on demand that can follow the user. You can also still manage access to Microsoft AppV, MSIX apps help manage thin apps if you still don't have those from 𝗦𝗽𝗲𝗀. Shortcuts to the desktop for SaaS apps. And then if you look at the policy creation management, you have a registry setting in here that can merge, exclude, or replace any registry key, handle file association defaults, user-defined scripts, environment variables. Effectively, you can change any of these things at user login or based on a trigger point during the user session. All of these items work with whatever processes you have today. So if you have Intune in place and it's handling part of these, or GPPs in place that's handling part of these, you can leave those in place. You can use as little or as much of this as you need to effectively get through this central management console eventually for managing all your settings from one pane of glass. On the left side here, you see filter management. That's context-aware filters that apply any of these feature sets on a context-aware basis. That's where I was talking about, is the user in the office? Are they working from home? Are they on the road? Are they in a secure location? Are they not? That can change the way that you configure that machine on the fly. Portability management is built in to help make the user profile portable, but think about it beyond the user profile. You can make any file or any folder system portable all the way down to system drive or system root. Inventory management keeps track of an inventory of the applications actually installed on the endpoint, or applications provision, like through our FlexApp, dynamically attached application solution. So that's a quick look at some of the most popular features across the board for ProfileUnity user and application management. And I'd like to hand it over to Jack Smith to handle the demonstration portion of today's webinar and presentation.
Thank you. So we are going to show a bit of those examples that Jason brought up, such as the environmental variables, such as the administrative templates that are pulled in and have the settings, things like shortcuts or registry injections. Of course, there are many other items and options within here. We are also going to show a little bit of applications being layered into the operating system from Azure Storage. So all of these items that you see here, I'm going to go into my workstation, and this is a AVD Entra only joined system. But as you can see, we can also support Windows 365 cloud provisioning as well. So as we come into this Entra workstation here, the ProfileUnity client that is displayed is reading the ini files or the configuration files from the Azure storage, which I'll show you in just a moment here, loading the profile into the operating system and processing any policies that are needed as part of that login time. So now I've got a shortcut on my desktop for Notepad. I'm going to have some applications popped in for my for my FlexApps. If I go into regedit, there's my FlexApps there for a moment. If we go into regedit, I have settings that I've popped into the registry. So if we come back over here and look at the registry, I have examples. So software, Google, value item, data item. So we go into here, Google, and the registry items will be in there. And I think I made this an LMP. No, HKey users. Okay. So that was for all. So those registry keys would get popped into the environment and placed down into the operating system. As you can see here also, these are layered in applications. These both came from the Azure Blob storage arrays. So being able to pull in applications dynamically into the environment, set settings, etc., is a big part of what we do here at Liquidware. And there's my Chrome. And in this case, this is the first time I've launched it, so it's going to be a little slower there. There we go. So then if I go and close it, for example, and reopen it, my settings will be there. My options will be there. Everything will be there. Let's go ahead and launch that one more time. And you can see it's instant. So not the first time launch type of thing. From the backend perspective, we're looking at things like Azure Blob Storage. So in this case, there is my Firefox, there is my Google Chrome applications here. And note in here, I do have a executable, a FlexApp 1. I have some different versions of FlexApp that can be delivered to my workstations and to my user base. So those Flex apps that are in there can also be assigned to the workstation via Intune, as you can see here. And it's just a matter of taking that executable, doing a Intune win, and then properly throwing that up onto the Intune management plane. You can see we actually did this one through the FlexApp packaging software, or the packaging management tools. The other component is going to be a completely different storage location. And in that storage location, that is where we're saving those settings. So all those settings that I'm going to apply when I log off the system will be held here. So if I go now and just sign out of the workstation, my settings are going to be saved out onto my cloud storage. So much like onboarding any sort of workstation, ProfileUnity client installed, you onboard into Entra, you log in, and you have yourself your profile that came from the cloud storage. No need for VPN, no need for any of those things. So as that's saving out on the back end here, I'm going to go ahead and refresh here. I'm going to get some newer files, probably Google Chrome. Since I just opened that up, it's going to save some Chrome settings out into here. There we go. So we got some Google Chrome settings that are in here. And those should probably get modified as of today. And I'm off on my desktop. So all settings, components, pieces, and parts are saved up into this cloud storage, accessible via our client software. The last part that Jason was talking about was being able to see what the configuration actually has in a report. And these are just reports that come out of our product by clicking PDF or text. So you'll be able to see those reports however it is that you need to see them. And you can go through and see what are my portability rules, which is our version of kind of a roaming profile. What are my filters, and what do they contain or need to have? Let's get past these here.
You would not get this if you're managing your enterprise with scripts, obviously. This is a big, big benefit here. It's also, do you get this even with group policy preferences this orderly?
Yeah, it's very similar to the GP preferences if you have those, but that's assuming that you have access to get group policy preferences for those workstations, or even if those group policy preferences hit, because technically when you're an Entra only, you're not processing group policies.
Yep.
So that's the report view of the environment, what things are connected, what is configured. It's basically looking at that entire configuration and telling you everything about what you have in there.
Yeah, and how many times, like, have we run into a customer that was like, ProfileUnity was running so good that the administrator may have left, and it was like 4 months later before they checked the configuration, they're like, I don't even know where to start here because I'm jumping in, and we were able to point them straight over to the summary reports, and they're like, oh, it's all documented, it's all here, I get it, I can pick up where we left off. So business continuity, even on the admin side of things, that's happened time and time again. You can't do that with scripts. I mean, it's too hard to figure out what's going on in an environment, what the previous person that left the organization had underway, how things were working. It's just, you walk into a maze and a nightmare in those situations unless you have this.
Correct. Yeah. And nice enough, a lot of times, the engineer that previous user has worked with is the same engineer that you're going to work with today. Our teams have longevity. That's a big thing for our company is that we do like to work with our customers and help them out directly.
That's right. Our average engineer has been with Liquidware at least 10 years, I would say. And so the chances are that if you had a change in the guard there, even your own job had changed, you had that assurance that, you don't want to ever leave a employer high and dry, no matter what you thought of them when you left, because you're burning bridges. At least you're leaving them in good hands.
Yes, we try to.
Okay, great. So you got a bonus there. You saw not only the policy management, but you saw applications come into that environment right when the user first logged in. So if you contrast this with Intune, now we don't say we're a competitor to Intune. Intune does a lot of great stuff for mobile device management and overall user endpoint management, and is a leader in there. And we don't propose that you get rid of Intune. It is really great at a lot of things, but for policy management and for bringing applications even down to the endpoint, I think you would agree that when you would rather have it done and know for certain that it has occurred. And that's what you get with ProfileUnity, right? You get that effect at login. You saw it today. It happened at the first login. That user was provisioned, configured, and off to the races, even with the applications they need. Jack mentioned this, but with Intune, it may be end of day, it may be the next day, it could be, even if it's a large enterprise, it could be beyond that. And then there's no report back or confirmation readily that that happened. So this is why a lot of organizations are choosing this to augment their Intune environments, especially in Entra ID. Do you agree, Jack? Or?
Yes, I absolutely agree. The fire and forget methodology doesn't always result in consistency.
I mean, you could reverse that, Fire and forget. You could say forget and be fired.
Possibly, yeah. There are ways to see if an application is installed through Intune, but it can take time.
Yeah,
that is correct.
All right. Thanks for the clarification on that point.
Thank you.
And thanks for the great demo. That was great to see.
Absolutely.
All right. So I've got the architecture slide here. People are like, well, how difficult is this to put in? Do I need a dedicated server? Can it run in the cloud? Should I run this on-prem? Jack, could you do me a favor and walk people over this architecture?
Absolutely. This is a little bit of what I was showing on the object storage side when I was logged into Azure. But what you're looking at here is the ProfileUnity web UI in itself is just there to create configurations and to do licensing. Out of that configuration, you are going to export or download an INI file, very similar to group policy GPP INI files. Those are going to be on the file share. Now, again, that file share can be an SMB file share, or in the case of cloud, when you are just enter only joined, it's going to be that object storage. So you're going to find your policy, which is that INI file, all in there. Beyond that, you also have your FlexApps there. Those FlexApps are going to be streamed down into the operating system and pulled into the OS. There is also another checkbox option that I did not show that can cache the entirety of the application down into the operating system for offline availability. So it isn't an always on internet connection that is required. Lastly, your user data. Where is my user data? What does my profile look like? That is also on object storage. Now, when it comes to author data, there's tons of storage provider options out there like OneDrive that can help you redirect your data and have that synchronized across multiple different workstations. But OneDrive in itself does not handle user settings. So my bookmarks, my application-specific settings, the way I like my toolbar set up, all the other third-party applications outside of the scope of the Microsoft realm, you're kind of on your own. And we do pick those up as well. So if it was just a matter of here's your new laptop, you'd log in, you get your settings, you get your apps, you're back in action. There's no reset up.
Thanks. And on the endpoint, that client that gets they get to put there, how does it get rolled out again?
So there's two ways. You can do it through Intune, where you can push the agent into the operating system via Intune, or in a lot of cases, before you send out the workstation to that user. You would just install it on that image and then send it out to the user. When they log in, they get their stuff.
Okay, that's great. Thanks for that overview.
Sure thing.
I'd like to touch on a few industry first for both of the solutions that you saw today, mostly ProfileUnity, but we'll touch on FlexApp as well, those dynamic attached applications that you saw come right in and log in. They could come in at different times, for example, on demand. They could also come in based on a trigger point and other things. But ProfileUnity, some of the industry first that we've developed as a leader of innovation in this part of the industry is user-authored data migration to SMB or cloud. We can do that from those folder redirects. We actually have a migration engine that lays underneath that and also reports out to that inventory we mentioned earlier. That context-aware app deployment, the way that we take Flex apps and now any other type of apps, including MSIXs, and app Vs and other things, we were the first to incorporate that directly in our user management. The privilege elevation and application restrictions was something that was out in the industry for additional licenses. We included that in our user management solution for no extra fee. It allows you to raise the privileges of an application for a user that's otherwise not an admin of their machine, helping keep that machine secure while you elevate the privilege only for a specific process or app. Application restrictions is another one that we included. That is that if you put something in the base image of that machine, or even in an environment like a published app environment, or other things like a published server environment, like something from Citrix, like a virtual apps environment, you can restrict the applications from running that the user may see if they don't need access to it, or you need to restrict that because you're not licensed for every user. Cloud native profiles, being able to store those profiles to cloud file shares, was the first from Liquidware, and we were the first in the key marketplaces, including Amazon Marketplace, the Azure Marketplace, and even Google. Universal file and registry redirection, being able to redirect any level of those files and registry from any level from the local machine and otherwise. That was the first from us as well as many others. The integrated ability to have applications is a first, and we developed that with FlexApp and FlexApp, the FlexApp solution of those dynamic attached applications. This allows you to take any type of application, package it up on a VHDX container, and then it gets attached, not installed, and happens right at user login or on demand or other criteria. Cloud native Flex apps, giving you several to choose from to try without even having to package any up. It was a first from us, caching those down to the endpoint so they can go totally offline. And that works great for what we're talking about today, Entra ID environments where the user may go offline and still have the apps they need to be productive. Maybe that's because they're traveling, or maybe that's because their internet connection went down. You don't have to worry that their apps are there. On-demand apps was the first. It was a first from FlexApp. That is, if the app doesn't really need to be on that endpoint, you can just put a stub icon there, and when the user clicks it, then it's brought down and cached down to the endpoint within seconds and opens up. Cloud-based apps we mentioned earlier, so fast packaging, the ability to package up these apps as easy as it is to install an app one time. That came from Liquidware. Otherwise, it was a laborious process through other means and other solutions on the market. Package once, that means that application that you saw, those applications that hit Jack's demonstration desktop today, those same apps don't need to be repackaged to be used in another environment, an AVD environment. You could have that same package ring through over there, or a cloud PC environment, Windows 365, Citrix, Omnissa. It doesn't matter how you deliver that desktop, as long as it's Windows. Package it once and it'll work, even most of the time across operating system version. That saves a ton of time. Also, a package editor was first from us to be able to allow you to edit packages of containerized applications, so you don't have to repackage them from scratch just to update them or add plugins, etc. Session isolation, being able to have an environment like a Citrix environment or an AVD multi-session environment, and user A does not see user B's apps, even though they're on the same infrastructure. That minimizes base images and base image management, because you can use one base image and have session isolated apps for each department or user. We were the first to bring this layering and host it onto Amazon Marketplace and Azure Marketplace to make them available. FlexApp 1 with no heavy agent. It's just the service that's embedded. FlexApp 1 is a very innovative way to package apps. Actually, it's just as simple as that package once mentality. When you package once, you can have two outputs, one in our FlexApp core that you saw today, and another output that you can share that package by any means necessary. Jack mentioned the possibility of deploying an app with Intune. That is one way that you can do that with our FlexApp 1 package. Citrix actually integrated FlexApp 1, and they can deploy our apps within Web Studio. And we were also the first to approach Microsoft for their attached apps, or our app attachment program. And we were the first to do that, the first to get through that program to make that available on AVD. Real integration from their single pane of glass to be able to provision out Flex apps. So what you saw today was a comprehensive user management and profile management solution that works perfectly with Entra ID environments and any way that you deliver Windows. ADD, hybrid join, doesn't matter, in any platform that you're on. We'd like to remind you that you can find out how much money that we can save you with our web value calculator. You can follow this QR code and land straight on our website and see how much that this solution can save your organization. Only takes about 60 seconds to fill that out. If you have questions or more, you can follow this QR code and you can get into our community and you can ask them from our subject matter experts, just like Jack here today. And if you'd like to make $25 from Gartner Peer Insights, you can review what you saw here today in FlexApp or with ProfileUnity by following this QR code and give us a review. You'll see that we already have an on average 5-star rating. You'll get a $25 gift card for 10 minutes of your time approximately. And with that, I'd like to thank Jack Smith, our subject matter expert, and I'd like to thank you for joining our presentation today. For more information, you can visit liquidware.com. Thank you.